I live for beauty. I also fear it. I am highly perplexed by it. I am also deeply inspired by it. I believe beauty is not only a virtue to strive for, but also a universal force that governs the entirety of our existence. When I was growing up, I found beauty in animals and the colorful displays of violence on the cathode ray tube. I thumbed through the pages of books and slurped up the words like they were ambrosia. Later on in life, I found much beauty in the natural world, specifically that of America, in the crags of the Palo Duro Canyon, the forests and prairies of the Osage in my home of the Midwest, and over to the salty surf of Florida's beaches. Aesthetic beauty is inescapably prevalent, and while I subconsciously recognized the ubiquity of splendor, I never truly came to grasp the full breadth of beauty's importance until adulthood, with the help of my spiritual growth and general earthly experience in life. From the moment I was thrust into this unforgiving bitch of a world, I have chased beauty. I have destroyed it and made it my lover, as I did pain. I have eaten beauty in all her bounty, and I have seen the unblinking eye of God in my nightmares. Firstly, I find beauty strikingly fluid, as I do most concepts. I find beauty unknowable, mysterious, but easily recognizable, and I think recognition of beauty on an individual basis is wildly different from person to person. I've always maintained that any one person could theoretically see reality in an entirely different way from others, and I believe this may be why some people view art in such a drastically different mindset than I seem to. My father, for example, knows exactly what he wants out of art. He interacts with and connects to art on a very emotional level. He seeks out and craves art which makes him feel things, and has a difficult time connecting with, say, movies that leave questions unanswered, or movies that leave him feeling bored or confused. My dad loves superhero movies and more straightforward dramas, whereas, while I can appreciate a good drama, I can't stand superhero movies. I seek out art that is more abstract, offbeat, or experimental. I love Mark Z. Danielewski and James Joyce. I like paintings that hurt to look at and music that drills into my brain. I like books that are written as if the author was trying to smash a spider running across the typewriter keys. I prefer movies that prioritize artistry and uphold the ambitions of auteurs, like Werner Herzog's documentaries. In music, I crave sounds I've never heard before, and seek out music that is as unique or as strange as possible. Some people may find it more difficult to appreciate less representational art, such as the works of Jackson Pollock or some of Henri Matisse's more abstract works. In the same way, some people scoff at experimental music. While I feel truly experimental video games are, at this point, quite uncommon, an easy comparison would be people who call story-driven indie games such as Inside and Abzu pretentious, or more often boring, like many people who call ambient music or post-rock music boring. Many people have drawn comparisons to the evolution of video games mirroring the evolution of film. It could very well be that soon we could see a sort of new wave take the industry by storm. New movements in the realm of interactive media are taking place constantly, but we are still at a point so unconceivably early on, not just in the timeline of video game history, but in the timeline of human history. Aesthetic beauty in video games is, first, to dispel some notions, A, not the same as graphical fidelity, and B, wholly subject to subjective interpretation on a person-to-person level. This is arguable and people will probably voice differing opinions in the comments, and that's great. I love to see opinions intermingle in my comments section. Anyways, Jose, in other news, surprise! The most realistic looking modern war shooter game of today, which uses RTX and hyperbit processing to render photorealistic soldiers gunning each other to death in brown hallways, is not necessarily the best looking video game of all time. It's simply more graphically advanced than any number of more stylized games, which may use techniques such as cel shading or low-resolution sprites to make the development of visual assets simpler on a tighter budget. Games of the latter variety tend to hold up better visually in the eyes of the popular consensus. Go back and look at any Call of Modern War battle game for the Xbox 360 and it's going to look like muddy ass compared to something like Chrono Trigger, which came out on comparatively primitive hardware but had fantastic art direction. But that is not to say that graphical fidelity is inconsequential when it comes to the visual presentation of a video game. Quite the opposite. For why The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker is beautiful, you need only look. From the foam lacing the deep baby blue of the vast, ever-expanding sea, to the iconic sculpted face of the King of Red Lions, to the rousing, epic soundtrack. Wind Waker, whose graphical fidelity enabled yet did not necessitate its beauty, is in my opinion just as beautiful a work of art as any Gauguin, Goya, or Goff could cough at. And that's not to say the painstaking effort those painters went through, nor the acclaim they've amassed is at all inconsequential or inferior in comparison to The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker. What I'm saying is that I believe video games are to other forms of art, as other forms of art are to other forms of art. That is to say, they are different. Not better, not worse. Indeed, it has been said that pictures are worth 1,000 words. I say they're each worth an infinite amount of words, and I will die explaining how every micrometer of any given picture holds untold amounts of nuance, as does every cell in every leaf or every Planck length of matter in the entire universe and all that may lie beyond it. The thing with pictures is that they are not better than words, they are simply different, and so it is with video games. These art forms have different dimensions and are capable of filling out different parts of the artistic spectrum. So imagine for a moment if truth coming out of her well, the painting, was a video game, and you could take control of the naked woman and beat people to death like in GTA. Would that not be dope? Imagine if you were able to play Ivan the Terrible and his son Ivan. If it was a VR game where you take control of Ivan the Terrible and, with the help of tactile feedback, can literally feel Ivan dying in your arms. Would these experiences be elevated? I consider it a loaded philosophical question that deserves its own video. That last paragraph, it was initially grayed out and considered for deletion in the script because I thought perhaps those thoughts were simply too stupid to exist in a respectable internet video. However, after rereading and re-editing the script for the severalth time, I now realize it is perfect for making one of my points. Part of the intrinsic beauty of video games as a medium is that yes, in a lot of them you really can do anything you want. Why wouldn't those paintings be better if they were interactive? Well, they wouldn't be better, they'd be different. Different shaped things fit different shaped holes. Beauty is compelled by video games, and video games are compelled by beauty. I can confidently state, alongside many of you who agree with me, that the artistic value of interactive media is self-evident. If you've made it this far into the video, chances are you're at least art-pilled enough to already sort of be on my level. So let me ask you something. How many times have you been brought to your knees or brought to tears by the beauty of a video game? When did you last, if ever, experience a moment like Cameron experiences in the museum scene in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but with a video game instead of a painting? When was the last time a video game made you lose your shit? When was the last time a video game made you poop your pants? I experienced something in a video game that I would consider powerful enough to be suitable for this point I'm making. I was playing Call of Duty Warzone and it was down to just me and 5 other people. Then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. The circle was the size of a penny and you could have drowned a 2-year-old in my sweat. I spotted the enemy peeking from behind cover and fired at them but missed. Knowing they would try to flank me, I ran down into a ditch to try and confuse them about where I was. The tactic worked. The enemy sprinted out of cover, going towards where I was just seconds ago, and had no idea I was aiming right at them as they ran across my screen, mere feet away from me. I leveled my rifle and sprayed like an aerosolic gun. But for real, my aim is shit, so I didn't manage to kill them before I had to reload. But there was no time to reload. The circle was closing in, and then they stepped into it, which downed them. I was down to a fraction of my last plate, and on reflex I just ran out of the circle and bashed their teeth out with the butt of my rifle. And that was that. I killed a fellow human being, and my brain was flooded with all sorts of chemicals. My whole body was shaking. It felt like I just took a line of coke to the face. It was awesome. What other artistic medium can do that? Can provide you with a sensory experience more physically intense than hard drugs? What other game can instill such palpable somatic beauty and ecstasy? I ask you this, good viewer. Video games such as Red Dead Redemption, which are hailed as particularly artful, or examples of games as art, a term which I find unnecessary as I believe all games are art, can strike both the aesthetic beauty of a painting and the thrill of the kind of interactive challenge a game provides. They can feature the quality of writing you may find in a great novel, while also serving the challenge of a sport. Video games can be all these things rolled into one, and can even contain other mediums within themselves. I have yet to hear of a book containing a movie, yet video games are chock full of movies, books, music, and other supplementary mediums, which come together to create an experience that can scratch many different itches. One of these examples is Death Stranding. First of all, Death Stranding's art design, its take on a dormant America haunted by dark spirits, is just beautiful to look at, as is the Norman Reedus. It's also interesting how the gameplay focuses on movement as a mechanic, giving new meaning to the term a walking simulator. It might be the foremost example I would give of a game that encourages meditation, and instills a sort of rare type of thinking/playing that very, very few games do. Its mechanics encourage and reward patience and thought. The long journeys you take on the deliveries give you ample time to think about the complex and mind-boggling concepts that the game introduces, not only through, well, lots of exposition, but also through show-don't-tell type presentation. There have been similar titles that gamify traversal in a similar way, such as K-WAP and Getting It Over with Bennett Foddy, but the difference is that those weren't made by Hideo Kojima. I've talked about the BioShock series on here before. It's a series I'm very fond of, but I find the environmental storytelling in them to be the shining example of how to do environmental storytelling in a video game. BioShock is one of those games I was talking about earlier that are visual art, literature, and film all rolled into one, and in my opinion, the OG BioShock excels in all categories. See my other video, Morality in Gaming, to hear me talk about BioShock more. In my video, The Magic of Animal Crossing, I explained how these games provoke connection on a personal level and compel you to invest yourself in its world in a way that even the most immersive hardcore RPG cannot, through sheer force of characterization. Animal Crossing can also be beneficial for players' mental health, and provide lonely people with digital friends that, while they can't ever replace the real deal, they can ease the pain of being alone. Baldur's Gate 3 helped me through 2 intense bipolar episodes, first helping me transition out of depression by capturing my attention and keeping me entertained with its fun RPG systems, and giving me a project for me to spend my energy on when I was manic and making that video. The amount of opportunities and possibilities afforded to you in this game is like nothing I've ever seen before. There are seemingly endless ways to solve each and every encounter. The beauty of RPGs is also evident in how much involvement they ask from the player, for to truly dedicate yourself to a long, complicated CRPG is akin to dedicating yourself to reading an epic novel. Sound Self is the passion project of one Robin Arnott, a man who sought to create an experience capable of provoking the same kind of unitive experience of consciousness brought on by psilocybin mushrooms. It is a transformative gaming experience, quote-unquote, and seeks to create a meditative, mystical effect by having you breathe and sing into a microphone to progress. As you sing, the game sends recordings of your voice back to you through the speakers, but distorted and altered in various manners. Soon, the screen becomes filled with colorful, abstract fractal visuals, and all sorts of trippy stuff is supposed to happen to your brain while you play it. Games like this seek to break into the sort of metacognition you try to achieve with meditation, or Wim Hof breathing exercises, or hallucinogenic drugs. One game series that paradoxically creates beauty out of ugliness is Silent Hill, whose aesthetic trappings are either drenched in blood or consumed by rust. The games evoke a thick and deep atmosphere, the acting delivers an uncanny experience a la David Lynch's films, and the puzzles can be pretty challenging. If you need help understanding the beauty of puzzles, look no further than the infinite possibilities of chess, the thrill of competitive sports like tennis or football, or try to spend a week in a mental hospital with nothing to occupy your time but crosswords. The soundtracks to these games, which consist of gloomy dark ambience, crunchy alternative rock, and groovy trip-hop bops, serve as some of the most foremost examples of musical excellence in video games.
When I think of beauty in video games, 3 games immediately come to mind: Morrowind, Heaven's Vault, and Kenshi. The most beautiful part of all of them are their worlds. Don't get me wrong, Morrowind and Kenshi are both ugly as hell graphically, A core theme of both games is that you're not special unless you make yourself special. You're only the latest addition to the long list of fools who believe that they could become the reincarnation of Nerevar. You can be special once you learn. Kenshi embodies this theme better than any other game I've played. Everyone functions according to the same rules. The only difference between you and anyone else in the world is that you have control over your character. While you get tougher for taking damage, big things get stronger for kicking your ass. The world will show mercy to no one. The game is a true sandbox. Nobody sat down to write quests or a story for you. The story is one you write yourself. Your characters struggle for survival, their accomplishments and numerous failures, and maybe their rise to greatness. I didn't get the appeal of Kenshi until I decided for myself how I wanted to experience the game. I began the playthrough with a skeleton that I forgot to name, a stolen Edge Type 3 katana, and a sizable bounty with both the Holy Nation and the United Cities. I left the border zone as soon as I could survive the journey. One of the first places I ended up was the town of Shark in the center of the swamp. After killing someone who asked me to grovel at his feet because I'm a skeleton, I decided to flee the city, but as I was leaving, a swarm of blood spiders entered the city. I managed to fight my way out, but the other residents of the city weren't so lucky. As I stood on a cliff overlooking the scene, people killed all the blood spiders and turned on each other. The three gangs that control the city erupted into war. I wasn't caught in the crossfire, so I decided to walk away from the city, leaving it to its fate.
A game that gives you immense freedom in a world of immense chaos. The beauty of Kenshi is obvious. Few other games will fuck you this hard. Beauty is inextricably essential to art. Art cannot help but be the vessel that beauty speaks through. It could be said that humans create beauty, not only through developing beautiful games, but also by perceiving those beautiful games. Beauty, after all, is in the eye of the beholder. For what good is beauty with nobody around to witness it? And that is where you come in, good viewer. It might sound corny and confusing, but in a sense, you are the beauty in games.